I was really grateful that you started our conversation with inviting me to notice where I come from, because I've been very fascinated with the wealth and abundance and the beautiful gifts of thought and conceptualization that were always around me but I couldn't notice. It wasn't time to notice that then. The Yoruba people, mainly in West Africa, but also in Brazil as well, in the so-called New World, prostrate before their elders when they see them. It's a deeper form of genuflection, and the Yoruba people call it dobale. A man literally falls flat on the ground and is still until the elder says, rise. For the ladies, it's called ikunle. And the lady just bends her knees a bit and rises just briefly. But I was shocked to learn that there's deep mythological significance to prostration. It's not just a gesture it's deep, it goes deeper than that. That to literally prostrate is to be still in the face of the storm. That is how Yoruba people see it mythologically. That there is this great god called Shango, who is the god of thunder and seismic shifts and upheavals. And when he shows up, you don't run away, and you don't fight it too. The habits of war are already being heard when we say things like we're going to fight climate change, we're going to defeat climate change and stuff like that. That's war lending itself again to how we're framing it. But these other teachings tell us to stay still, to be perfectly still in the face of the storm. And it's from these that I was able to tease out this beautiful idea that the times are urgent, let us slow down. Slowing down has been interpreted by many communities as basically doing what we're doing, but at slower speed. That is, we're literally slowing down the pace of things. We are not typing our memos as fast as we once were. I literally had a German brother write to me and say that you're slowing down in vocation isn't working because my bosses are still on my neck. Slowing down to type a memo isn't really working. And I responded by saying slowing down is not a function of speed, it's a function of awareness. And I don't want to make awareness a mental construct. It's a function of presence. So when I invite slowing down, I'm inviting us to research, to perform research into the ancestral tentacularities that proceed from us. I'm asking us to touch our bodies and touch our colonial bubbles. I'm asking us to listen, as you say, to witness. No, not just to witness, to witness, to be with land and community and ancestor and progeny and children in a way that isn't instrumental. Activism is increasingly instrumental. So it's performing a form of power that is tied to the logic and algorithm of the status quo, which makes activism, even in its search for justice, a creature of the status quo, which makes hope and justice, as ironic as that sounds, a creature of the things we're trying to leave behind. So slowing down seems to be a hacking of the machine. It's like we're taking on other forms of embodiment that allows us to penetrate into different kinds of realities, other worlds, if you will. Let me stop there for now. I could go on and on.
Well, I do want to go on, and I really do want to lean further into this topic. And I've been meditating on the real challenge and friction of slowing down. Now, Tricia Hersey of the Nap Ministry describes rest as a radical threat to the system that feeds on the grind of urgency, writing, quote, "We are living and participating in violence via a machine-level pace of functioning. Anyone who goes against this pace is living as an outlier and a risk taker. It is warrior-style resistance to push back and disrupt this reality," end quote. In context of so-called modern capitalist life, I find that rest can only be non-threatening insofar as it's carved out of the shadow of work, as, say, consuming or vacationing, rather than a generative expression and worthy endeavor in its own right. So how can we reorder this kind of dualistic thinking around work versus rest, or progress versus stagnation, and embody the power of a slow, humble pace?
Hmm. I would think of rest. Let me apply Fred Moten's, let me do some rapping here, even though I don't rap at all, and stretch. I think the beautiful gift of rapping is to disrupt linearity and binaries, is to tease out branches, what the French philosopher Deleuze will call deterritorialization, is to tease out branches from the singular, to tease out the many streams from the mainstream. I would take that word rest and stretch it further. How about we think of rest as marinage? The marinage being the process of extricating oneself from slavery, and rest as fugitivity. That is moving away from sites of productivity. That is, are there other ways we can be generative and productive without taking on the singular definitions of a capitalist neoliberal structure? Are there other ways that we can defy the stentorian voice of progress? If we're not progressing, then there's something wrong with us as a community, as individuals. If we're not producing, what if rest is, as I've said before, listening to one's elders, dreaming? What if that's a form of rest? What if working is play, or what children do? The university structure is one example of a colonial imposition that sees study and learning as only one thing. If you're not studying in some disciplinary manner, then you're not studying. That's not real learning. That's what the university will tell you. But what if having a conversation with a friend is a form of study? So, yes, I agree that rest is decolonial in its relational entanglements with a capitalist structure. Like you said, I don't want to see it as a binary thing, rest versus non-rest. I want to move outside of that binary altogether and create fugitive communities where rest takes on new meanings altogether. And I don't know what that is. Only in the performing of it can we speak about it. And that's just fine.
It makes me think of an interview I did with a dear friend, Bronte Velez, where she speaks of Fred Moten.
I know Bronte.
Oh, amazing.
Right.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm definitely going fugitive, and you bringing those things up. I'm thinking of them so clearly in this moment. So I'm happy we're bringing Bronte into this.
Yes. Right.
So within our connection to this dynamic, fluid universe, I'm also thinking about quietness as an elemental ingredient of relationships and enactment of reciprocity. How is cultivating a humble quietness imperative to creating alliances and collaborations with our beyond human relatives for our collective earthly survival? And I want to just make a personal note on this. Since I've been living out in the forest, I do realize that it isn't until I get quiet and I get humble that I'm able to listen and connect with the more than human world. I realize that if I'm too busy or I'm too crowded with the distractions of modernity, the voices from the more than human world won't enter me. I can't hear them. And so I really feel that my relationship with the forest and with the more than human world has come from me quieting down and really offering a lot of myself, patience, and trusting in this connection that will come if I'm just able to, like I said, kind of leave modernity at the door and walk away from it for a while.
Yeah, I'm happy for you, sister. Not many people have the privilege, the the space, the opportunity to be in the space that you are in, to go to the forest, to build a cabin and to live. It's entirely unimaginable to do that in a place like Chennai, for instance, where there's hardly any green life.